What are we going to do to engage community members and stakeholders? This September, we plan to kick off an open house meeting at 2 locations. We're not sure where those are going to be. Likely one somewhere up north in the 3 city area, but then we'd also like to get something closer down to serve unincorporated Thurston County. So we're open to ideas for venues. We want to get people in the tent. We want to hear their ideas. But that's really just to orient them to the planning process, kind of solicit their initial ideas. We'll have 2 more additional community-wide open houses at the end of the process where we will respond to what we did with people's input and present to them the recommendations that are going to be included in the plan. So basically going out to them with the draft plan and getting their input on the actions that are proposed. We'll have 2 online surveys, one at the beginning of the process to coincide with that open house and one at the end of the process with getting public comment on the draft plan. We'll use multimedia engagement tools. We'll probably go out to community events like Capitol Lake Fair, the Thurston County Fair, set up like a table, information booth, try to get ideas. So we'd be open to hearing from you. What events are happening here in Tenino, or perhaps you have people coming from unincorporated Thurston County, because we imagine that a lot of residents in South County come to Tenino for services, come to restaurants and social interactions in here in your community, so you have a good idea of maybe how we could reach out and engage people at some of your community events. So these are some of the major tasks that will be performed as part of the process, and these that are on this slide will largely be performed by the consultant team. And so the first task is to evaluate the emissions inventory. As I mentioned earlier, Thurston Climate Action Team, they gather data from Puget Sound Energy, TRPC on our transportation data to develop that emissions inventory that says that we're generating 2.84 million metric tons equivalent of carbon dioxide. The consultant is going to kind of validate that emissions inventory. So that's the first step. Where really are, what is our baseline? They will help identify a set of existing actions to propose for the process to serve as sort of inspiration for the climate advisory work group. And then in terms of performing quantitative and quantitative analysis of actions, they will work with the advisory group to develop multi-criteria analysis, and just some illustrative examples here are the effectiveness and impact of those actions. So if we're looking at trying to say maybe change building code to make buildings more energy efficient, how much is that actually going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for that particular action? What would be the cost of doing that? Are there other co-benefits that could come with that, such as quality of life, equity, helping to improve public health, maybe jobs creation or spurring the economy? So those are just some examples of co-benefits. Looking at the feasibility, do these communities have the regulatory ability, the technical expertise on staff, and the financial wherewithal to implement these actions? And then the urgency, what would be the timeline and the coverage area for implementing some of these actions throughout the communities? That will be followed by scenario planning, this thing called wedge analysis, and I'm not really an expert on this, but I'll do my best to explain it. So what they'll do is they'll look at a business as usual approach. This is just sort of your control, right, your baseline. So this is what we're going to project as business as usual for what are the sources of energy that we're going to be using to power our grid and fuel our vehicles here in Thurston County. What policies are already in play that are helping to achieve energy efficiency, and trying to forecast out into the future what our greenhouse gas emissions are going to be. And then with further policy framework, like Washington State Legislature just passed, the governor signed a 100% clean energy bill this last legislative session. So that will put a dramatic dent in our emissions inventory here in Thurston County and across the state. So that's one major policy impact that we'll be looking at. So then what we get to is this point where it's like, okay, we've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions this much, we have this much remaining. Now all those priority actions that we've identified, how much of a dent will each of those put in reducing and achieving those goals I mentioned, that 45% reduction by 2030 and 85% reduction by 2050. Almost done. So define and plan community actions. We're talking about 4 very distinct communities, distinct population sizes, distinct economic sectors, communities with differing values. So each of those communities will have unique levers that they can pull in this process to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So the consultant team is going to help identify unique strategies for each of those communities to help them implement their actions, but also be looking at county-wide opportunities and strategies where communities can work together across the whole county to reduce emissions. Developing those implementation strategies. And then a really important piece is identifying who and how over time is going to monitor our progress. So someone kind of needs to take the lead on inventorying our overall greenhouse gas emissions over time and checking to see if we're making progress. Someone's going to have to standardize data collection, what analysis is performed, and reporting that information out. So this is just some of the pretty major and significant tasks that the consultant team will be helping us out with this process. So here, this is, John saw this earlier, this was at the Transportation Policy Board. These are pretty high-level actions, but in many ways, if you read these actions on here, these are things we'd be trying to do even if we weren't confronted with the effects of climate change. These are things that make sense to do for a variety of reasons. For years, TRPC, through the Regional Transportation Plan and the work that we've been doing, we've been trying to make our transportation system more efficient. Costs money to maintain our roads, repave them, widen, improve operating efficiency at intersections. Here in Tenino, you're confronted, we know, with those challenges with State Route 507 and Old 99 and a lot of truck traffic. Wouldn't it be nice to see more people shift their modes to van pooling, carpooling, using more energy efficient vehicles? There's a lot of co-benefits that come with all of these actions, not just reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but achieving mutual objectives that are already identified in our existing comprehensive plans and transportation plans. So you can stay up to date. We're posting all of the steering committee climate advisory work group materials up on the project website, which is trpc.org/climate. From there you can get information about what's on the adaptation plan. And I think the adaptation plan has some pretty substantive actions in it, but it also really has the most definitive description of what the impacts of climate change will bring to Thurston County region. And that's based off of the work that the UW Climate Impacts Group did. So that's a real science, evidence-based approach to looking at how we're going to be affected here in Thurston County. So if you really want to understand what that means for future generations, that's a really accessible, easy, fairly quick read to get through. And of course, all the mitigation materials, and this is where we're going to push community members to come to if they want to sign up on our website by offering their email address to receive notifications about the project. So that's a really great way to stay informed. That's my show. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
I just had a comment. My experience has been people look at climate mitigation, especially in our area, you haven't seen any major effects, some of the smoke and stuff. I think it would be helpful, especially when talking to the public that aren't really educated on climate change and all the effects it has, to really stress there's issues with health, there's issues with, because people want their kids to be healthy, you know. So this isn't just a thing about climate change, this is a thing about our youth health, this is it. And I think people relate to some of those things more than they actually do the climate change. We can get the climate change part of it taken care of, but I believe it's really valuable to stress some of the other effects of reducing emissions. You know, cars, we don't have as many cars in the road. You know, there's a lot of things besides carbon that are harmful to our kids. So I would stress that when we're doing public presentations to try to really make sure we get that integrated very well into the presentation, that people know all those other things that are benefits of moving away from carbon.
Yeah, we could certainly rename this the Community Wellness and Health Promotion Renewable Energy Plan. I mean, that could be another way to frame it, right?
Yeah. So I know
Definitely.
we're talking about climate mitigation, but I think when we talk about that, it's helpful for the public, especially people that maybe doubt somewhat the climate part of it, to say, we're spending billions of dollars on our health care because of this, we're spending, So I think it's just valuable to make sure we work that in there, at least somewhat to let people understand some of the bigger picture.
Sounds like you're volunteering to be on the steering committee.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
And we're
thanks
making
for that.
progress. I just heard
Yeah,
today they're
no,
shutting
that's-
down some more coal plants in Montana by the end of the year, 2 big ones that are huge carbon emitters, so things are happening, but
Yeah, TransAlta's no longer going to be burning natural gas here in the future. Where do those jobs go?
yeah. So that's the other part of the jobs. I mean, what does this mean for jobs in our communities where we're losing jobs, and people are fearful of losing jobs at TransAlta, but if we can show as part of this is creating new jobs in this field and training our youth to do these things, again, people, I think, connect with that very locally and personally, so I think it's valuable to just talk about those
Yeah,
things.
so I hear you. So we'll try to amplify what those co-benefits are
We
and
talk
focus
about it
on
a little
those.
bit, but I think
Yeah.
maybe amplifying that even a little more would be helpful.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. Brewster? Thanks, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
Next
just
is the
gonna-
lectern.
I'm just going to shut down and pull out my drive, and the next person come on up.
Mr. Kelly Wynn, ladies and gentlemen, of Water and Wastewater Services.
Well, I don't know that I have as long a presentation or any visual aids, but I'm here to talk with you about your wastewater treatment plant. And my name,
Is that blue green light on?
yes,
Okay.
there we go. So my name is Kelly Wynn, and I own a company called Water and Wastewater Services. You contracted with that company for the last several years to operate your wastewater treatment plant. And within that process, we have seen a developing need to deal with biosolids. And it's not unusual that a sewer department is generally the most expensive department in the city, and is always struggling to have enough money to operate properly. And through Water and Wastewater Services, I operate about 200 different water or wastewater facilities around the state. And we are always looking at ways to improve the operations and earn money. And one of the things that I started managing and operating the town of LaConner about 40 years ago. And about 20 years ago, we started a program there where we were taking the biosolids that are generated at the plant, and we started composting them. And composting alone does not really help you with the expense of biosolids. Biosolids disposal represents about 30% of the budget in a typical wastewater treatment plant. You've been very fortunate because you have a big lagoon. It's been filling up over the last 10 years, but you've reached a full point. So we didn't want, typically, at least up in our area, most of the cities loaded into tanker trucks, haul it over the mountains, and they spread it on fields in eastern Washington. And that seemed like a terrible waste, and doesn't help with climate change either. You're burning a lot of diesel fuel to get it over there. And so we were able to convince the town to begin to compost. But again, composting can get really expensive, and so we had another need within Skagit County, where the town of LaConner is located, and that was to take septage. So septage is, we call it outside waste. It's the waste from people that aren't on typical sewer systems. They have septic tanks, and those have to be pumped. And so we started taking the septage into the treatment plant, along with the biosolids, and we take biosolids from many different wastewater treatment plants. We mix it with the septage, we dewater it, we mix it with shavings, and actually at this point, it's almost all yard waste. We actually contract with larger cities around us to take their yard waste, they pay us to take it. We grind it up, we mix it with the biosolids and the septage and a compost, and then we sell it. So that's kind of what we'd like to propose that Tenino consider is doing a same kind of a program. And I think a few years ago, I'm actually kind of late on getting an outline to you, but a few years ago you hired G&O engineers to kind of evaluate that. And they did a good job. They evaluated the need, and they also presented a plan for you, a way of doing it. That plan kind of had a price tag of about $4 million. And that usually kills the deal. What we did in LaConner is we started with a very, very small budget, and we just built it up over time. And now 20 years later, the composting department in the town of LaConner is the wealthiest department within the city. And we've reached a point where we run out of compost. We can't sell it quickly enough, or we sell it too quickly and we just don't have any more. So I sent you out an outline that kind of talked about how we might do it. I think it had an ultimate price tag of about $2 million. That's not something that you have to spend right up front, but that's kind of an idea to get started over a period of time. You could spend that much money. You're a little different here in LaConner because you're a little different than in LaConner because you don't have a dewatering device here. And so that's a big price tag, and it will be the most major expense that you have to have. Did everyone get the outline?
Yep.
Is there questions that I can answer about it?
We talked about it in our work session a little bit, and
Okay.
I know we did the same presentation a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah,
when we initially started talking about
Well,
it.
we've been talking about it a long time, and Wayne has wanted me to get this to you, and it's, I just haven't gotten it to you, so.
Still think it's a great idea if we can make it work. What I talked about this morning is, or earlier today is, I think there may be some opportunities, especially on the composting side, because I know there's been some efforts in the county to do like manure from some of the dairy facilities, and this county did a huge study and showed that it would be a moneymaker
For a biodigester.
for a biodigester.
Yeah, and they do that up in Skagit as well.
And there's some, I think, probably talking about the climate change, I think there may be some monies available that to do some of that kind of stuff. So on that part of it, I would like us to explore a little more what opportunities may be out there to look at different processes that would be most beneficial, and maybe have some funds available for us to help with the cost. So
As far as phases go, though.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be a while, but-
That portion is down the road.
down the road, so just
We've got
something I
time to
would
look
like
into
to
that.
explore a little bit more about what, and PSE's even interested, they talked to me and said, hey, we're interested in doing something, so we may be able to get some private-public partnerships.
Yeah, I
look
think
at
there's a
some
lot of opportunity. You know, the LaConner program has been fairly self-sufficient and hasn't partnered with anybody. We do have agricultural digesters in the area, but we don't do anything with them. We've actually looked at their byproduct as a amendment to mix with the septage and biosolids, but
It just seems we don't have anything like that down here. There may be opportunities to incorporate some of those things, maybe on a smaller scale than they have up in LaConner, because I know they have a lot of dairies, big, large dairies, so there just may be some things we could look at.
yeah,
partnering with to
there's
see.
always lots of opportunity.
I think the take home is we want to work on the LaConner scenario.
Okay.
And everybody here, to my understanding, is still very interested in moving forward with this.
Well, I'm sorry that I haven't gotten this information to you, or at least an outline to you, more expeditiously, but I just hadn't had time to do it. And so hopefully this will give you an idea of what we're talking about, and I guess what I would be the bottom line is what we need to do immediately is deal with the lagoon and getting a lot of that taken out.
I think initially there was, years past, there was apprehension and kind of, people were unsure of if this was legitimate or a good idea or what it really meant. And we spent a lot of time talking about it and researching it and looking into it and working with you. And I think now you have a council that is very much in tune with it and very supportive of it. And, when I talked about it during the work session, it's just a lay person talking about human waste. I want you guys to see the face of the expert and ask him questions so that you're assured enough and you're confident in this program enough that we can, keep moving forward with it. So this is your time to ask him, pinch him, see if this is real.
Just an idea. We have the ag park. How close are we to actually breaking ground?
We should be, the contracts for going for the infrastructure stuff should be in the next couple of weeks. So
Because what I'm thinking is there are places that use that compost and use it to make energy. Do we have anybody like that here in the state of Washington?
that's exactly what Dave was just talking about.
Yeah, we have not done that in our program in LaConner. We sell the material to lots of topsoil companies,
Yeah,
lots of homeowners, and they use it for a soil amendment.
but not as far as energy.
No. It would actually, I'm not sure that you would, at the level that we would be doing this, I'm not sure there's gonna be that much of a return for what we produce.
They would need that much, and we wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, it's typically, in very large wastewater treatment plants, they end up having digesters that create methane or energy, but not at this level. So we would be focused more on soil amendment type situations,
Okay.
and it works very well. And we also, one of the things that LaConner did is they put a free pile out in front of the facility, so you go there any day of the week and there are people loading up garbage cans and buckets, putting them in the back of the Mercedes and driving home and putting them in the garden. So it really is a good public.
It's nice to know that they can afford Mercedes over there.
Well, we have a community near us called Shelter Bay, and that's
Okay.
yeah.
Because what I'm thinking is that there's got to be some way, since we're in the very beginning of putting the ag park in, of marketing both parts.
Yeah, no, this is there's synergy here that's gonna happen.
And we did that in LaConner. We actually partnered with WSU, and we put a student through a PhD program studying the material. And what we wanted to do was make it more viable to farmers in the area. And they found that it actually improved the soil and the crops more than normal fertilizers did. So there's always a synergy with this.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? Rachel, you're the newest member. Do you have any questions about wastewater treatment plants or our dreams of what to do with waste?
It is a big dream. No, not at this time.
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, I will,
Let's do it. There's a bunch of checks right there, just take one.
well, we'll get started and I'll coordinate with.
So the dewatering plan, right? So we want to find a belt press. Those are expensive. What is our short-term hope?
Well, what I'd like to focus on right now is getting a device out there to deal with the lagoon that's full. Because that lagoon has to be emptied in order for us to begin using it. We're not empty, but we have to take the level down quite a bit. So I think we talked about a dollar figure to do that, and I can do that relatively inexpensively with the hopes that, from the manufacturers that we might be buying one from them. So what I'd like to do is make a recommendation to you about that.
Okay.
The rest of this stuff, a great deal of the material I can kind of glean from LaConner or from other places so that we can get this set up and you spend the least amount of money to get started and see how it goes.
Okay.
But I think it will be successful. It took a little time in LaConner, but it's the largest dollar value budget that the city has now. It's more than the water department, the sewer department, the enterprise funds.
Okay.
So it's really done well. In fact, the biggest problem is we have to keep the city out of
Taking the money.
taking money out of it. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
well, I got a whole other term as mayor for us to figure this out.
Oh, well,
we
we'll-
didn't get it done in the last one. We got
No,
4
we'll
more
get
years.
started.
All right.
We'll put some.
It's a 2-term limit too, isn't it?
Yeah, 2-term limit. If it's not done in 4.
Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Kelly. All right, that brings us to the regular agenda. Under old business, City Attorney Rick Hughes recommends the City Council make a declaration of special market conditions concerning the, see Paul, Karen? Through the purchase of Caboose X549. A declaration of special market conditions is required to ratify the purchase of Caboose X549 and waive the normal bidding requirements as are authorized by RCW 39.04.280. Recommended action is to move to declare the existence of special market conditions during the period from May 14th, 2019 through May 24th, 2019.
Or you can leave it open.
You leave it open.
Leave it open. Thank
Get a
you.
little airflow.
A lot of hot air in there.
Yeah.
A lot of politicians, that's why.
A lot of hot air. At this time, is there anyone that would like to make a motion to declare the existence of special market conditions as stated?
I guess we've already bought it, so.
So moved.
So I'll make a motion to
It
approve.
has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to Mr. George Sharp, who has already provided an update, but you can step forward if you'd like, on the progress made to date by the Mayor's Creative District Task Force. So now's the time when we'll take action to approve the change to the Creative District boundary and to propose the Creative District budget.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the change to the Creative District boundaries and the proposed Creative District budget. Is there any discussion?
Thank you for your work, George.
Thank you.
I think it would be a great addition to the city. It's a real positive.
Yeah,
So
you too, then, since you were on the committee, so
Oh,
thank
kind
you.
of.
Any questions for Mr. Sharp? George, you have any questions for us?
Nope, appreciate the support, we're ready to rock and roll.
All right.
Thank you. All those in favor?
All right.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. This brings us to the Eagle Scouts. Eagle Scout Joseph Marco, Leslie, are you the Eagle Scout? Wishes to undertake a renovation of the wooden stairs along one of the trails within the Tenino City Park. He has developed a plan for the renovation and is currently raising funds in order to execute the project, if approved. Eagle Scout Nicholas Robinson wishes to publish a map of the Tenino City Park trails and install distribution boxes for those maps at 2 locations within the park where the maps would be available to all for free. Life Scout Lester Robinson wishes to undertake the installation of stairs and railings along a certain portion of the trail near the quarry pool. He has developed a plan for the installation of the stairs and is currently raising funds in order to execute the project if approved. You can see all the plans provided in the city, in the budget, or
Not the budget.
this packet of stuff.
Move approval.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the trail renovation projects within the Tenino City Park as submitted by the Eagle Scouts Joseph Marco, Nicholas Robinson, and as submitted by Life Scout Lester Robinson. Is there any discussion?
Please thank them.
Absolutely, I think these are great projects. Hearing no further discussion, is there,
One more thing, when upon completion, we should at least get them a certificate.
okay. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to Chief Swain has received a request from the Seattle Police Department for the City of Tenino to join forces with them as part of the Crimes Against Children Task Force. The agreement has been reviewed by both the city attorney and the Risk Management Services Agency and meets their approval. The Seattle Police Department has prepared the document intending that Chief Swain sign on behalf of the city.
No problem.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize Chief Swain to enter the CACTF interlocal agreement on behalf of the city of Tenino. Is there any discussion?
Could you just give a real quick synopsis since we're being taped? It really doesn't say what this is for. We went through the process before, and we got an explanation of it. We had to pay for it. But on this little part right here, Crimes Against Children, just a little bit more, if you can.
About 10 pages. Washington State Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force acting through the City of Seattle Police Department and the Tenino Police Department. This is an interagency agreement entered into by and between the Washington State Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force acting through the City of Seattle Police Department and Tenino Police Department acting through its duly authorized representative. There's a whole bunch of whereases with the Department of Justice, the interagency the Crimes Against Children Task Force. It's a national network of 61 coordinated task forces representing more than 3,500 federal, state, and local law enforcement and prosecutorial agencies, with each task force having an agency designated as the OJJDP as the lead agency, which is the law enforcement agency that is awarded federal funding to serve as the lead agency of the corresponding task force. The SPD, Seattle Police Department, is that designated agency. SPD is a recipient of the federal grant,
Okay, I think yeah.
and we are supporting that effort.
Yeah.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. There are no resolutions and no ordinances. That brings us to reports. Chamber of Commerce, not present. Economic Development Council, not present. Experience Olympia, not present. Fire District, not present. Library, not present. Museum.
No report.
Okay. Civil Service Commission.
Commissioner Lamb speaking. Civil Service Commission meets, we should meet Thursday, however, it's kind of iffy. Ken hasn't really called a date yet.
Okay.
And we do have a few applications for the Civil Service Commissioner.
Oh, good.
So, that, we can sit down and discuss that during the meeting too.
Okay. That brings us to Planning Commission's meeting is canceled. Facade Improvement Grant Review Committee.
We approved the two applications, the post office and the farm. And we'll be having another meeting after John gets back from these.
Okay. So I think now that you guys are making a recommendation to the council to approve those. So
Yes.
we'll get those wrapped up and we'll get those into the next meeting. I will try to attend the next meeting of the facade improvement grant review.
Figure out your schedule.
Okay. Okay. Finance Committee, Public Safety Committee, Chief of Police gave his report, Director of Public Works has provided his report. Trying to think if there's anything, does anybody have any questions regarding Public Works?
No. I don't.
Okay. Get ready to get out of here.
Yes.
City Attorney, Clerk Treasurer, does he have a report in here? Sure. Yeah. So current, total revenues 14.7%, total expenditures 41%, target 43%. General fund 30% of projections, general fund expenditures 45%. Grants, not much has changed there. The quarry pool renovation RFP bids are due June 19th. Our CSP funds, interlocal is now fully in place. So if you go to the park entrance, you will see that the bike plaza is under construction. We opted to, I believe you guys are aware, we opted to do stamped concrete, kind of look like the cobble sandstone. It looks real nice. And they're going to start putting the furniture in shortly, and the bike fix station and the water drinking station. We've also got them putting in flagstone instead of, it was cheaper than stamped concrete. So if you, to the entrance to the museum where that sidewalk is, you'll see a bunch of stone kind of in
That's what that.
panels.
Okay,
Yeah, it's gonna go into the sidewalk there. It's gonna look real nice. Same outfit is doing it. So watch that construction. Our goal is to be done by, well, it'll be done well in advance of STP. Quarry house renovation. Everybody's aware we are receiving $361,000 to do the renovation of the quarry house. That's going to be something that we're going to start working on. That's it. My report went to the City Nation conference. I don't have a report back to you guys yet because we're going to go give one to the EDC, and then I'll just kind of like use that for this. But it's,
So they get first here.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll polish it down there. It was a good conference. A lot of networking and kind of team building. You know, we kind of have a regional tourism team. You know, people that are interested in the kind of destination economic development stuff, and there was a lot of bonding on that. And then there were presentations and a lot of, you know, it amazes me like how much stuff we're doing that is being taught as best practices, like the Facade Improvement Grant Review Committee or the Facade Improvement Grant Program. That was a thing that, oh, you need your community to do this because we're doing this in Branson, Missouri, and like, oh, we're already doing that. And then there's been a big shift from, you know, like this kind of like big corporate touristy type thing to people trying to create authentic experiences. Yeah, and I'm like, well, hell, we're doing it by default, you know, like what we do here with the market, the creative district, the quarry pool, the stone shed. Those are all things that other communities would love to be able to recreate, and we've got it. And you cannot make up, you know, or recreate something as authentic as we have. So what we're selling is attractive.
I saw the pool was like named like the most.
Yeah, Seattle Met just did an article that said that our pool is the greatest swimming hole experience in the entire state. Yeah, that's kind of big.
We're selling
And
good looks, charm, and personality.
yeah, yeah,
That's what we're selling.
yeah, we are. We're selling an experience, and we're doing a good job, and it's gonna pay dividends. And you know, a big take home is that. You know what we're trying to create by creating an experience. You're doing a lot of different things. You're also, you know, creating a story of a livable community. You're getting buy-in from residents and getting them to believe in the experience as well. And when you do that, it attracts people from out of town, and people from out of town bring in money. And we need to have a healthy economy. You've got to have things and resources coming from the outside and getting spent and kicked around. And we are doing that, and we can see it in all our little metrics. So it was cool. It was worthwhile. It was a whirlwind. So if there are no further, well, no, that's done here. Now we go on to BDAT.
They don't have a meeting until the 17th.
CIP,
We don't have a meeting this month.
Solid Waste Advisory Board.
I missed that one. Something came up, so I'm not sure what went on here.
TCOM 911, we still hearing from them.
Can I make a comment on
Sure.
that real quick? I know there's going to be some movement to upgrade TCOM. I kind of ran into somebody. It's going to be a spendy one, and they're
Yeah.
going to be coming asking for some sales tax money, I believe, to fund it. So look forward to that. There's going to be doing some presentations at the cities, but something to keep in mind.
Time school board.
Just a few things. So there's 3.5 days of school left, and so like Chief was talking about earlier, so the high school principal is leaving us, and we are getting from Tumwater. And then the superintendent also hired on an assistant superintendent, and he is actually coming from Tumwater as well. He is the superintendent there. So my question to our superintendent was, as far as like money in the budget to hire them, and the assistant is retiring from Tenino, and he is actually taking her position with the new title.
Yeah,
So
there
you're
was
gonna- you'll
a
be
special curriculum director or something like that.
Yeah,
It was
so-
rolled into that position.
Yeah.
So a new position wasn't created.
Different name.
Different
Yeah.
name, yeah, so he actually is stepping down a couple of pegs, because he's the superintendent from Tumwater.
Yeah, after
So-
Tumwater had a real rough
Yeah,
time.
yeah, so, yeah, so we're excited to have him, and, I'm glad to hear that there is going to be a policy as far as, the child safety and the violence that's going on. Back in May, the chief was called, in 1 week, 4 days in 1 week because of violence, and, I know that there were some cases where, charges were pressed, so it's getting to the point where, I don't know if it's the kids just, towards the end of the year, they're getting frustrated, but they started the no hands rule,
Last of the day.
lasted a day because there was a huge uproar about it. Parents were really upset because apparently in middle school kids high five. I don't know, I've never, yeah, so,
Fist bump, high fives.
parents were really upset as far as that, because they said that that's not encouraging. So they decided to change that and went from, okay, well, you guys can fist pump or handshake, just no hugging, no direct contact, and it is small hallways, and it, you know, I get it, some kids get bumped, but you're not supposed to, no shoulder-to-shoulder contact or anything like that, so. And then they've been having trouble with kids, the new thing is vaping, so vaping in the bathrooms has also been a thing. So who would have thought? So this summer's gonna be really busy. Huh?
Need that. We've been looking for that to come to this way for a long time.
We'll just take all the doors off the bathrooms. That's what they did when they just stopped the
I
smoking.
know.
When you were a
I
kid?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it
They
makes
just
me
took all
happy.
the, even the stalls, took all the doors off.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was smoking cigarettes. Vaping usually doesn't have
They
the
keep
same
the
smell.
doors-
Smells like cotton candy or
Yeah,
something.
well,
And
and-
that's the other thing too, is you don't know if it's nicotine or something else, because it
Besides,
has
yeah.
that fruity
Well,
smell,
I'll tell you
and
something
that's
else
the
about
issue.
those pipe things. I had one, no, it was in the pocket of somebody standing behind me at the red one, I was cashing in my
Oh,
checks.
yeah.
And it blew up. And it hit me in
No
the
way.
arm. It blew up and blew the pants pocket right off his pants.
That's what he
Oh,
was
was
there.
in his pants and exploded?
He had it in his pants and it blew up. And it shot, and it hit me, tore my blouse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were catching up your shit.
I just wanted to get out of there.
I,
Go
yeah,
out. Get
yeah,
my money and run.
that's nuts, but I'm,
Were you up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
but I'm really happy to hear that the chief is
Lucky
gonna
Linda.
start the safety, having somebody on patrol, because I think that that'll cut down on a lot of what's going on, having somebody there day to day, because, you know, us as parents aren't there, so we don't really know what goes on. You know, so it's like, for me, the no hands rule, I never really had an issue with, because every rule starts with something. So, but anyways, more on that probably starting next school year's meeting. But yeah, so the summer's gonna be really busy as far as that, and the track, the running track is gonna change color to be red now. That's gonna start in July, and the parking over at the middle school is gonna change, drop off and pick up. It's gonna be more of a U-shape, so you could literally like open your door, kick your kid out, keep going. So it's
You
gonna
don't
be
even have
really
to
easy.
stop.
You don't even have to stop.
I know what you're saying.
Maybe don't need any more violence.
Except for my kids walk, so when they leave, I'm just like, have a good day, make good choices, and then I shut the door. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but it's pretty cool, so.
I know when they're a couple times a week.
All right, TRPC. We heard from him. Do you have a report?
It was pretty just information, a lot of informational stuff this time. Thurston Thrives gave a brief presentation about their efforts. I won't go into all the details. There's going to be a public outreach for our update the regional transportation plan. So it's an opportunity for South County and us to talk about anything we would like to see in that plan. The other thing that may be of interest to the council and mayor is July 12th, we have our retreat for our strategic plan for the next 2 years. So if there's anything that you would like to see changed or added to TRPC's work programs, let me know and I can bring that up at the retreat.
Okay, steady. Haven't met since
No,
last
they
week.
did, no, that's just the last report.
Yeah. TPB.
That's tomorrow morning, and we're changing venues. It's gonna be at the Lacey Community Center, because that's where we're having our retreat. One of the topics.
Retreat.
Yeah, I hate that. Anyway, that's one of the topics is going to be electric vehicles finally. And hopefully we'll get from there into flying vehicles, because as I said, they laughed at me the next morning. I showed them a $490,000 flying vehicle for commercial use, and they've just been coming down in price and getting closer and closer. Dave's going to Seattle. Yeah, $200 to get to fly one of them.
Oh, they actually come one to test.
Yeah,
Can you fly down here and pick us up?
yeah.
I might fly over.
But they're getting closer and closer to the market. Now for our generation, we'll see the electric cars, but we're not gonna see a whole lot of flying vehicles, but they are coming. And the electric cars alone are gonna have a major effect on how we govern our roads. And it's also gonna have a major effect on gas tax. Except for the flex vehicles that have both electric and gas. And they'll get about close to 50 miles a gallon. You've got just the flat out electric cars like Dave's Tesla. And Tesla's coming out with a version that the average person is supposed to be able to afford around $35,000. And there's a couple other companies now out of Japan.
Truck is cheap too.
There's a couple other companies out of Japan that are starting to gear up for that market as well. So in the next, I would say 5 years or less, you're gonna see a whole lot of electric vehicles out there. Okay?
Thank you, John.
Oh, yeah.
How high up, Jason wants to know how high off the ground you're gonna be.
I don't know, they didn't give the details yet. They got a place, they have to
He's gonna
still
die.
develop the guidelines and what they want you to do.
Make sure you wear a helmet.
Helmets don't help when you're like
Helmets.
100 feet in the
It's
air.
supposed to be able to float on water if there's an emergency, and it has a parachute, so
Really?
hopefully
Yeah.
if anything happens, I will still land safely.
I wanna do it.
Float on water.
When are you doing all this?
It's gonna be towards the end of the year, so I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew you.
Public comment period number 2. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to provide public comment, please step forward and do so at this time. You'll be given 3 minutes, state your name and address.
Leslie Lamb, 118 MacArthur Street North.
Thank you, sir.
And I didn't get to comment period number 1 because,
Forgot it.
yeah, it was bypassed.
Good thing we have 2.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell Dave something that might excite him, so.
Oh, Dave.
Dave, did you know that they're making solar panels out of glass now?
Glass?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, clear glass. You can
Clear
use those
glass.
windows, yeah.
Right, just think of all the windows in your house, it would generate enough electricity, and they figure that the household will generate enough electricity just with the windows, that it'll supply all the energy you need for your house. It'd be just with normal living with electronics and your normal daily living, so that was a neat deal. Now, let's get on to the streets and sidewalks and stuff like that. I don't know if any of you have ever been over on Lincoln Street, but I have a
part.
yeah, just about most of it.
I'm
Just to go out and check the sidewalks. They're almost non-existent over there. Where there was a sidewalk system over there, it's kind of deteriorated over the years and it's gone to pot. and I'd like to see some of that taken care of. I also like to see more ADA access to the corners, on the corners of the streets in this city. It only goes like maybe to Kyton Street and then it stops. And then there's hit and miss in other places and stuff like that. But I'd like to see some ADA corners for wheelchairs and people just walking. I mean, it's always nice to walk down instead of have to step up and step and walk the distance and stuff like that. And just to let you know that in the city, I don't know if you know it, but there are 2 buildings here that are considered green. And that's the Sandstone Apartments.
In my house.
They have certification hanging right in the, like the community room there, showing that they're green. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening.
What you guys
Les,
planted
yes,
at the
it's Kyton. Kyton.
And well,
Kyton.
All right, meeting adjourned. Never.
Very good. Hair on it. Sorry, I had to give it back.
Usually around the middle of July.
It is, yeah.
Like a week before.
Donna, I can't carry this thing. I can't roll it around. I can't carry it. It's not fair. Okay, bye everybody.
See you, Linda.
Later.
How'd you do, Ron? You all by yourself? Is it okay over there? All by yourself?
July
Not
13th.
having John next to you there?
Nice. Hey, if you're available Saturday, I'll send you an email, but we're gonna be doing the defensive tactics training, all the cops.
Oh, yeah.
And then we've got some
If I can get
folks.
away from work or from,
Really?
Sweden,
Oh.
Saturday.
Is
Oh,
that you
you're
that's
running around.
perfect?
We'll have some folks from out of town to train them. It'll be a good day to come in and see the
Slinging them around.
getting flung around and
Should be
beat
fun.
up.
Office?
Beat up on
There's
each
a
other.
microphone right there? Is it you?
Probably. What?
Well, no, it's like on the sidewalk,
Fairly
like
well
on the
known.
pathway
See it?
leading up to the
Oh,
office.
George?
Is that you? Or are you off to the side?
Thought I was off to the side.
Oh, you're probably off. There's
Oh,
a
no,
bike track.
Wayne drove here.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
Wave?
yeah.
Oh, I was like, Jason, you are so
No. Yeah. Wait, I'm lazy. He drove from his house to here.
Hey, I came from somewhere else.
trying to get every ounce of shade, you know? Like, I'll park in, yeah, right? I'll park in the field. Right. Oh, I thought that was Jason's bike track.
Call these guys tomorrow?
Yeah, sure.
Because this thing's not working, obviously.
Yeah.
Alright, guys.
All right, see you, Rachel.